Verstappen did not just fail at Monaco. He may have exposed the biggest flaw in Formula One's new 2026 era. A four-time world champion arrived with a Red Bull he had already called undrivable, a Ford project under massive pressure, and an 88-point gap to Kimi Antonelli that made every lost lap feel like a championship disaster. Then Monaco gave him the cruelest possible illusion. For a moment, the RB22 looked alive. Verstappen was close to Ferrari, close enough to shock the paddock, close enough to make Red Bull believe the comeback was real. But what if Monaco was not proof of recovery? What if it was only hiding the car's worst problems? Because the new rules were supposed to reset Formula One, create a smarter future, and bring the field closer together. Instead, they may have built a car that even Verstappen cannot trust. And if the most ruthless driver on the grid is now blasting the regulations, this is not just Red Bull frustration. It is a warning that Formula One's future may be faster, smarter, and more broken than anyone wants to admit. Subscribe to the channel. For the first time in years, Max Verstappen arrived at Monaco with something more dangerous than pressure. He arrived with doubt. Not the kind of doubt that comes from one bad qualifying lap, or one missed setup call, or one unlucky race. Something deeper. Something that follows a driver into every braking zone, every steering input, every corner where the car has to answer instantly or the wall will. He arrived wondering whether the machine underneath him could still be trusted. That is not normal for Verstappen. This is a driver who built his entire reputation on certainty. He could take the most violent part of a race, the moment where the rear tires start moving and the car feels like it wants to escape, and turn it into speed. Other drivers would hesitate. Verstappen would commit. That was the old Red Bull story. A car on the edge, and a driver who loved living there. But the 2026 Red Bull does not feel like that story anymore. The RB22 was supposed to mark a new beginning. Red Bull with Ford. A fresh technical era. A new rulebook. A chance to prove that even after Formula One changed almost everything, Verstappen and Red Bull could still be the team everyone else had to chase. Instead, the early season turned into a warning sign. Australia brought concern. China brought alarm. Japan did not erase the fear. And by the time Monaco arrived, Red Bull were not walking into the weekend as the team in control. They were walking in as the team searching for proof. Proof that the car was not a failed concept. Proof that the upgrades were not just covering symptoms. Proof that Verstappen could still attack without feeling like the car might punish him for believing in it. Because this is the part that matters most. A Formula One car can be slow and still be useful. A slow car gives a team a direction. Add grip. Reduce drag. Improve efficiency. Find balance. Build step by step. But an unpredictable car is different. An unpredictable car attacks the driver's confidence. And confidence is the one thing Verstappen cannot afford to lose. He had already described the RB22 as undrivable earlier in the season. That word stayed with Red Bull because it was not a normal complaint. Drivers complain constantly. They talk about understeer, oversteer, tire temperature, brakes, wind, traffic, and balance. Most of those complaints are part of the routine language of a Grand Prix weekend. But undrivable is not routine. Undrivable means the driver is no longer fighting the rivals first. He is fighting the car first. And that changes everything. Because in the cockpit, the driver does not experience a regulation change as a document. He does not feel a political vote. He does not feel a technical philosophy written in clean language. He feels the car. He feels whether the front end bites when he turns in. He feels whether the rear stays loyal when he picks up the throttle. He feels whether the car gives him a warning before it snaps, or whether it waits until the moment has already gone. And Verstappen's problem was that the RB22 kept turning those answers into questions. The car could understeer on entry, refusing to rotate when he needed it to. Then, just when he tried to recover the lap on exit, it could oversteer and punish him. That combination is brutal because it gives the driver the worst of both worlds. It is lazy when he needs precision. Then aggressive when he needs stability. Imagine trying to sprint across a floor where one step sticks and the next step slides. You do not stop being fast. You stop trusting the ground. That is what the new Red Bull did to Verstappen. And that is why Monaco was the perfect place for the problem to become emotional. Monaco is not a circuit where a driver can hide uncertainty. It is too narrow, too exposed, too cruel. The walls are not far away in the distance. They are right there, waiting for the smallest hesitation or the smallest snap. Every lap demands total belief. At Saint Devote, the driver needs to brake with confidence. Through Casino Square, he needs flow. At the hairpin, he needs patience. Through the swimming pool section, he needs violence and accuracy at the same time. There is no room for a car that argues. And yet, that was exactly the fear around the RB22. Red Bull had worked hard to bring the car closer. The Miami upgrade package had helped. The revised steering system gave Verstappen more feeling, and for a driver like him, that is not a small upgrade. Feeling is lap time. Feeling is confidence. Feeling is the difference between reacting to the car and commanding it. The team also brought Monaco-specific changes, focused on cooling, steering angle, suspension fairings, and bodywork. They were trying to make the car survive the unique demands of the street circuit. They knew Monaco could offer an opportunity because the track does not punish every Red Bull weakness in the same way a faster circuit does. And at first, that opportunity looked real. Verstappen suddenly appeared close to the front. He was near Ferrari in practice. He was close enough to make rivals look twice. After a season of frustration, the RB22 finally looked like it had life. But that was the most dangerous part. Because Monaco can lie. It can make a wounded car look healthy because the track is so unusual. It has no true high-speed corners, so Red Bull's worst energy recovery issues in those zones were less exposed. It demands maximum downforce, so some active aero weaknesses mattered less. It rewards low-speed grip, precision, and driver skill, all areas where Verstappen can cover more than most. So the question was never just, is Red Bull fast in Monaco? The real question was, is Red Bull fixed? Those are completely different things. A car can be quick at Monaco and still be broken everywhere else. A car can suit one strange circuit and still fail the championship test. A car can give Verstappen one clean lap and still refuse to give him a season. That is why his frustration with the 2026 regulations did not sound like ordinary anger. It sounded like a driver questioning the foundation of the new era. The rules were supposed to create a smarter Formula One. Active aerodynamics. Greater electrical power. More complex energy deployment. A new balance between efficiency and speed. On paper, it looked modern. Ambitious. Necessary. But Verstappen does not drive paper. He drives the result. And the result, for him, was a car that often felt less natural, less predictable, and less connected than the machines he had dominated with before. That is the part Formula One cannot ignore. Because fans may debate lap times, upgrades, and standings. Engineers may talk about aero maps and energy harvesting. But the driver at the limit knows something more direct. He knows whether the car gives him permission to be brave. The old Red Bull did. The RB22 often did not. And when Verstappen talks about the new cars taking a step back in drivability, he is not talking about comfort. He is talking about trust. He is talking about whether a driver can place the car exactly where instinct tells him to, or whether he has to wait, manage, compromise, and protect himself from what the machine might do next. That difference is enormous. Because Verstappen's greatest weapon has never been patience. It has been controlled aggression. He attacks earlier. He commits harder. He lives with less margin. He can turn a car that feels alive into a weapon, as long as it speaks clearly. But if the car stops speaking clearly, the aggression becomes dangerous. Then the driver has to back away. And the moment Verstappen has to back away, the whole Red Bull project starts to look vulnerable. That is why Monaco mattered so much. It was not just another Grand Prix on a glamorous calendar. It was a test of whether Red Bull had found a real path back, or whether they had merely found one circuit strange enough to protect them from their own flaws. And the championship made the test urgent. Verstappen was already far behind Kimi Antonelli in the standings from the attached reports Monaco context. Mercedes had momentum. Antonelli had become the new reference. Ferrari had Hamilton and Leclerc pushing near the front. McLaren were close enough to punish any weakness. Red Bull did not have the luxury of waiting. They needed proof now. Not a hint. Not a promising session. Not a few encouraging comments after practice. Proof. Because every race where Red Bull do not solve the RB22 is another race where the 2026 rulebook feels less like a reset and more like a trap. And that is the emotional core of this story. Verstappen is not angry because Formula One changed. Champions adapt. Great drivers expect change. Regulation resets are part of the sport. He is angry because the change may have damaged the one thing a driver needs most. The relationship between instinct and machine. If a driver turns the wheel and the car hesitates, trust weakens. If he opens the throttle and the rear snaps, trust weakens. If he approaches a high-speed section knowing the car will not harvest energy or carry speed like the rivals, trust weakens again. By the time he reaches Monaco, that lost trust is not just technical. It is psychological. It sits in the hands. It sits in the feet. It sits in the decision to attack or protect. And the cruel part is that Monaco punishes protection. A driver who protects too much loses lap time. A driver who attacks too much hits the wall. The only way to be great there is to know exactly where the limit is. But what if the car keeps moving the limit? That is what makes Verstappen's criticism so powerful. He is not simply saying Red Bull need more pace. He is saying the new Formula One may have changed the feeling of the cars in a way that makes pure attack harder. And for a driver whose greatness is built on pure attack, that is not a small complaint. It is a direct threat. A threat to Red Bull's comeback. A threat to his championship hopes. A threat to the kind of racing that made him almost unbeatable. And as Monaco unfolded, that threat became impossible to ignore. Because even when the RB22 looked alive, the doubt never disappeared. Was the car genuinely improving, or was Verstappen dragging it above its level? Were the upgrades solving the concept, or just making it easier to survive? Was Monaco a turning point, or a beautiful illusion? That last question is the one that should worry Red Bull the most. Because illusions are dangerous in Formula One. They make teams believe they are closer than they are. They make development choices look better than they might be. They can delay the hard decisions. They can turn one strong circuit into a false sense of recovery. And Verstappen does not seem like a driver willing to live inside an illusion. He wants the truth, even if the truth is ugly. And the truth after Monaco may be that Red Bull are still not fighting Mercedes on equal terms. They are not yet back to the level where Verstappen can impose himself on the season. They are still trying to understand how the new regulations have changed the battlefield beneath them. That is why his blast against the rules matters. It is not just a headline. It is the sound of a champion losing patience with a future that was supposed to create opportunity, but instead gave him a car he has to question. And for Red Bull, that may be the most dangerous failure of all. Not the missed points. Not the lost momentum. Not even the championship gap. The real failure is that Verstappen no longer sounds like a driver waiting for the car to dominate. He sounds like a driver asking whether the new Formula One has taken dominance away from him completely.